Hi, everyone. Welcome to Office Hours. If you're watching on YouTube, you can find out more about what we do at officehours.global. You can also sign up there. First hour is general discussion about media or virtual production. And the second hour, third hour, fourth hour, or other things we'd like to talk about. So today, we actually don't broadcast the second and third hour. That's education. But we will broadcast at 11 o'clock. We're going to be cooking with Damyanti Gajjar out of South Africa. So it's getting easier, by the way, in case you're wondering. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't set this thing up before the show. And now I'm almost all set up. So it turns out if you put all the equipment back in a single box with all the equipment, with all the cabling you need, it's a lot easier to put together the thing. So anyway, we'll be cooking at 11 o'clock. Then back to Belfast for the Belfast Method. We'll be going back to the Accidental Theater at 12:30. So stay tuned for that. And so let's go ahead and jump into the questions. TJ, what do we have?
Hello, everybody. This morning, the first question comes from Jason Robert Shaw from Sarasota, Florida, who asks, will there be an Office Hours Global holiday special this year?
That seems like so much fun. I don't even know what to do with that. I don't think we planned it early enough. We could have had the remotes play Feliz Navidad, and we could have, someone else do a Christmas tune and somebody else do a Hanukkah tune. It would be really fun. Go ahead, Rupert.
It has to be surely a whole animated light sequence over everybody's video feed.
Red and green lights, all like pop with some. Yeah, it would be
live from John Preto's house.
Yeah, exactly, Jeffrey.
Maybe read the Night Before Christmas, and we could do it like sections. So one person could do a part, and then another person could do a part.
We'll have to think about that. I will admit that I'm not much of a holiday person, so I never know what to do with that. Usually it's just something that I do for a part of the day, and then I move back to whatever I was doing before. So you'll have to think about it amongst yourselves. Next question.
Our next question comes from Rick Combs from Columbia, Tennessee, who asks, what is a good second monitor for the new MacBook Pro 14-inch M1 Pro? Need to stay in the 21 to 27-inch range.
Go ahead, TJ.
I'm a big fan of Dell monitors. Specifically, their 24-inch monitors have most of them have a really nice feature with their stand, which is highly adjustable. So if you're doing a desktop standing monitor, their 24-inch monitors will rotate. They'll go up and down. They'll tilt. They're also really good video quality.
Go ahead, Mitchell.
It's amazing how low monitor prices have come. They've dropped in price from astronomical amounts to hundreds of dollars now. My fave is anything HP makes, especially in the Dream Color range. But if you just want a good utility monitor, the Z24F G3 is a great little 24-inch 1080 monitor that you can be very pleased to own.
Good, Peter.
I like TJ. I'm a big fan of Dell monitors. I use the P2715Q, which is and one has to watch out when you're buying Dell monitors and read the descriptions correctly, because there are various flavors of the monitors. There are business monitors, there are video photographic editing monitors, and then there are the general purpose ones out there. And the P series are the big professional machines that come close to Rec 709. Come close.
Go ahead, Rupert.
Yeah, plus one on all the Dell stuff. Just do avoid some of the cheaper consumer type Dell 24s, though. I think they're just not quite up there in terms of quality. And some of them also have a gloss bezel, which I find very, very distracting on the consumer Dell monitors. So if you stick with the professional stuff, you'll get a nice matte finish.
Go ahead, Mark.
With respect to the Dell monitors, there's two that I think you can see on my screen right now that are Dell 27 4K at $399, or if you want the USB, it's not 4K, it's $409. They're a little bit more pricier, but they're the 27-inch.
Yeah, one of the things that I've had a hard time recently is finding 24-inch 4K Dells. Like that has to, I feel like there must be some pipeline issue because they're almost impossible to find. 27 for what I do is too big. It's just too much monitor for what I'm doing. So I ended up getting some 24s because I some 1080p's because I don't need more than that for what I'm doing. But it was, and they're a lot less expensive. They're like 230 or 240. But I'm not using them for anything color critical. I'm just using them for, I got something over here to look at. So so it worked out fine, but I used to buy lots of these and I can't seem to find them now. Next question. We can't hear you, TJ.
Sorry, our next question comes from Alex L. in Novato, California, who asks, how did the California Parks event go?
How'd it go, John? How'd it go?
Who is this Alex L person?
I know he's crazy. You don't have to answer the question for him, but
No, it was a wonderful event. Hats off to Michael and the team at Parks California that did the segments and they interviewed the park director. Hats off to the Brad and the interpreters who first we were congratulating for reaching 1 million students, but they also, a number of them had to do little events. And then a hats off to our own office hour, Greg at Real Picture TV, because he was the producer. For this group where we like to talk behind the scenes, I will give one little anecdote. The rehearsal that went the day before. The next morning, we're in the studio getting ready to light things and set up. And one of the park rangers comes in, and the studio is next to the yard where they have the maintenance and the crews. And they also have a little garage there where they fire guns on a quarterly basis. So he comes in about 2 hours before our meeting and says, we'll be, testing our guns here for a little while. And we said, how long? And it's not that long, but it's very interesting to be setting up with the sound of rapid gunfire next to you. So anyway, then we're half hour before the show. Everything's great. We had the original ranger who conceived of the program, and we had the original IT director of the parks program. And we had the current IT staff member who had originally hooked up the studio. It was his first month on the job, and now he's a senior member in IT. And the IT director went to him and said, how are we hooked up here? Because we used to have to get a line from the county office of ed, and there was a big rack that had nothing in it now. And he said, oh, no, it's all right here in this cabinet. He opened up the cabinet and he was pointing out to what the things were. And the guy said, what's this? Oh, that's our Meraki. And he said, I've never seen one. He picks it up and we lose internet.
Yeah.
And, he tried to be calm. He walked out, he did some testing, he left and came back with his Pepway as his emergency, which he didn't have on. And about 8 minutes before the show started, a light that he hadn't seen before was red, but it turned green and it went forward. So,
and then in the Meraki or in the Pepway?
In the Meraki.
No, the Meraki came back up again.
It came back up, but it was go, why? Anyway,
Exactly. There have been so many moments on our shows where someone decides to do something, like move something, and you're just like, you didn't need to do that. That was not necessary.
But the show was great.
How much of it was live versus playback?
There was a 1 minute overview roll. There was a 3 minute of the director of the California State Parks. There was a brief video from a PBS, and the rest of it was all live.
That's great. Fantastic.
And it went very well. They're tightening a little bit, and it'll be posted, and it's going to be an evergreen event.
How long was it?
It was an hour and 10 minutes. We were aiming for an hour show. We had one play out thing that went a little slow, and we need to tighten it up, but it will be, under an hour. And then that's where we're going to pass out to the cable systems and offer to anybody who will see it. And of course, it will be promoted heavily on the parks page and the parks, the ports page, the California State Parks page, and Parks California page. And if you dial 70770, you text ports 707070, and you can donate to the California State Parks Foundation, Parks California Foundation for Ports. I'll get it right. I'm not very good at asking for money. What can I say?
Thanks so much. That sounds great. I can't wait
It
to
was
see the actual
and
video.
one of the goals of this was to convince the foundation that they could up the level of their productions.
Right.
And, Greg does a 1-person show.
Yeah.
That's from his mother's ship. And it convinced the senior management that they need to up their game. And the California State Parks team was already there. They're trying to figure out how to do their things with one interpreter.
Yeah.
And the fact that it went so smoothly just made it all the better. It's not only was the event great, but the impact the event will have on the organizations is great. And since Bobby had an injury, I wasn't able to do much of anything. I got to play the role of professor, just everything's going to be fine.
Right. We really are starting to see, I think when we talk to clients, the behaviors are starting to change. I mean, COVID has just lasted so long that we're starting to see people just realize, oh, we're going to really have to invest in online. And it's not just because they think that COVID will last longer. It's that they're just seeing less people wanting to show up. Like people are now used to this thing that like, I can watch this thing online. Why would I show up? I was talking to someone yesterday. They said they went to a conference that usually has thousands of people and it had, 300. And while they were sitting there in a panel watching people talk, they were like, it just kind of came to them that they were like, why am I here? Like, I can watch them talk from my house. Like I drove, 2 hours to get here and now I'm sitting somewhere where I could have sat at home. And I think that behavior now is about to shift. And I think it's really important for organizations to realize that, if they thought we were ever going back to where we were before, this should be a wake up call.
It was here. There were a number of people in the organizations that I work with that I've been saying, up your game. Let me send you a camera. Can we do? And at the end of this, I got some text. Okay, yeah. What do I need to get?
Yeah.
And
it's one of those things that keeps on, as people up their game, then the online version becomes more and more viable. It becomes more, something people want to do as people keep on getting better cameras and better audio. So, next question.
Michael Andreas from Olathe, Kansas says, I bought the Facebook Portal TV currently on sale for $79.99. Its HDMI output is used for the user interface. What is the magic setting or app that allows the use of this device as a local camera?
Go ahead, Rupert.
I believe the way that this has been most successful is to actually launch the Zoom app on the Portal itself and start a dummy meeting. Let that pop up and that'll bring up the camera, the Portal's own camera view, and output it over the HDMI. Then you can leave that meeting doing nothing essentially, and then just take that HDMI output into whatever pipeline you're using.
Go ahead, John.
I will give credit to Guy because Guy is the Portal whiz. But on the Portal TV, the other thing you can do is get the USB-C to Ethernet adapter. The nice thing about the Portal TV is that it has an HDMI out, but with the Ethernet adapter, you could have it hardwired. And then you get much better with the Portal TV Plus. It could either be Ethernet or HDMI. So you have to use Ethernet. The port for your HDMI to get your video out. So it means you're connecting via Wi-Fi. But actually, in a good home network, since you're really not going anywhere, you're just turning it on to get the video out. It does amazingly well. Also on the Portal TV Plus, you can turn the Portal's Bluetooth on. And then when you're in Zoom, you could select the Bluetooth connection as the microphone. So it gives you better audio. Where on the Portal TV, it does not have Bluetooth. So you need to make sure you're using your other audio chain. And at the Portal Plus now since they have the new Portal Plus at $350 or whatever, the old version, the one where the screen rotates, is down to about $160. So they're selling it for a lot less than it costs them to make it. It's not a bad 4K camera. It does auto tracking, but you also could do manual.
I have to admit, I have one, which I think works really well. We've used it for some of the cooking stuff, but I have to admit, I don't leave it plugged in. so it's always like I put it up. It's just another camera system for me. Go ahead, Roscoe.
Yeah, everything double down on what they both just said. And if you just want quick tests of the camera, you can turn on the photo booth app.
Next question.
Tlaloc Miguel Lopez Waterman from Astoria, New York asks, I know it has been discussed before, but what is the process of getting the question times from Mukana as bookmarks into YouTube?
Go ahead, Jeffrey.
So basically, Mukana has a command that you can run, and what that'll do is that'll pull all the timestamps and the questions into a text file. You then go into the text file. What I do is I delete all the leading zeros because we have a 5,000 character limit, and this show breaks that every single day. So I take out the leading zeros or any other thing that that would look weird or anything like that. All links have been removed prior to that, and then I just basically copy and paste it into the description. If I hit the 5,000 character mark, either what I do is I edit the questions, or I will take the remaining ones and I'll copy those, and then I'll say remaining questions are in the comments, and the first comment I put in that can go past the 5,000 character mark, and I can put the rest of the timestamps in there. So there's a timestamp for every single question from the video on the page.
Are there rules about links inside of descriptions? You said you take the links out.
Chris takes the links out, so it's already out.
But is it
before that? But there are no rules.
YouTube's okay
as long as it's not tobacco, firearms, porn,
right,
or anything like that.
Mm-hmm. Next question.
Coming from Jason James in Mesa, Arizona, he asks, is there a waveform vectorscope app for Mac or PC that you can highly recommend for a traveling tech kit that could or would be combined with a Thunderbolt capture device that would be close to a real Tektronix scope?
Go ahead, Jonas.
Either the Nope Omniscopes or Vmix actually has vectorscopes built in, and you could take them in over SDI, send them out over SDI, and that also works with Omniscopes.
The Omniscope is really great. I think that I would highly recommend it. I think it's like $400 or $300 to buy it, but it goes on 3 computers, so it's actually less expensive as far as we use it. And we buy. I think we have 2 licenses across lots of computers because we use it all the time. It is. We used to use Scopebox, and I still have Scopebox, but the Omniscope has turned out to be it's more adjustable. There's more options. The only thing that's missing right now is audio waveforms, and we would be in heaven. It's just the best scope system I've used. In addition, one of the other things I'd highly recommend is finding it on YouTube because it's on YouTube. They have incredible training on how to understand scopes. Omniscope happens to be the app that they use because it's theirs, or his, I think. but it's a really, really great app, and we're hoping to bring the developer on in the near future. Go ahead, Jonas.
Yeah, just wanted to show the different versions because the video version is a new one. You had to buy the 401 a while ago, but they just released one that is specifically just for video, and that is pretty affordable. Yeah.
But I would go all in because it's an incredible application. Like it's really, I've used Scope. As many have heard, I'm really into scopes, and it's the best one I've used so far. Next question.
Our next question comes from George Butters from Halifax, who asks, what is the one digital indulgence you will splurge on over the Black Friday, Cyber Monday long weekend?
Go ahead, Mitchell.
I got to get me a teleprompter, and I got to get the right one. So I'm hoping maybe we can get a second hour in before Black Friday. Maybe.
I don't know if we'll have a teleprompter hour before then, but we'll see. Go ahead, John.
So prior to getting your electronics, you have a nice bottle of Macallan 18, and then you install one of these because the HyperDeck doesn't have audio outs on it like the other one used to. So I have to break out the audio so I can put it into my mixer.
All I'm just going to say is go 25, John. That's the way to go.
25 is too expensive.
Anyway, someone still owes me one. It was a bet. Anyway, Jeffrey.
I'm looking at some cameras. So if anything is on Black Friday that is a really good discount, I'll probably get it because I think I have a project coming up next year that will require even more cameras than what I got, which is crazy.
Good, John.
Well, an Idelson family story is I'm a graybeard. So when Black Friday really only happened on Friday and it wasn't online, my daughter and I got up at 3 o'clock to get in line at Best Buy to buy something. And I was early enough that I could get the low price TV. I got but we didn't need a TV. So I gave it to the next person in the line, and he became a dear friend forever. My wife has suggested that this year, to control my spending, we pretend it's back then when you could only do it for 1 hour on a Friday morning, and then that's it. You're done.
Roscoe.
Mac Mini M1 16 gig or HDR large screen TV.
Yeah, those all sound very good. The next question.
Scott Mueller from Germantown, New York asks, do you think people will buy less things and more experimental purchases?
Experiential.
Thank you. Experiential purchases in a supply chain crashed economy. Will this be a good thing for office hours producers of live events, or may streaming events become a luxury item people won't be able to afford?
It's a very complicated question. I do think that we're moving towards a digital future where people spend less money on things and more money on digital things. So I think that whatever that means, I think is going to be up in the air. But I think that we are definitely moving towards spending more money on content and digital items than we spend on knickknacks. I think the knickknack market is in big trouble, in my opinion. I don't think that the next generation is much into knickknacks. Go ahead, Roscoe.
Yeah, I think the cooking show might be an interesting fit to this question, just because the ingredients aren't expensive and the experience is amazing. So, that you really are buying an experience with, maybe if your cumin or something is stuck on a boat off the harbor, that might be an issue, but I think most of the time that'll be available.
I think the market for we're experimenting with a cooking show and we're trying to figure it all out and kind of pushing it along. The real market at some point with the cooking show will be that a company like Whole Foods or Safeway will package the cooking shows with pre-built boxes, meals. So that's how you make this all work from a monetary perspective, is to go, I want to cook with Damyanti Gajjar, and a box shows up on Thursday or Friday for the Saturday cooking that has all the ingredients. And you can, like, when you say you want to sign up, you click on the things that you don't have, and it just, or it just all comes as one big thing. And it's just all these boxes are set kind of like. And when we started thinking about this was when we had Blue Apron, 6 or 7 years ago. And I was like, what they really need to do is do cooking together, where people, go through it and learn more about it and learn the process and everything else. And so I think that that's where you could see that kind of, and I think that could be in a lot of things. We're going to play with the microbit. You could have programming and hardware and putting things together. There's all kinds of things that are an experience mixed with some commerce that could be I think it could be explosive, once we get it figured out. And that's what we're kind of figuring out with the cooking show. Go ahead, Rupert.
I think there are going to be some other factors that go into people's decision making to ultimately have a disposable income, or how they may want to make those decisions, like travel, environmental impact of, going places and experiencing things, when new experiences will be coming to them either at home or just closer in their area.
Yeah, I definitely think that we're going to keep moving towards that, where people probably travel a little less. I think that there are things that our virtual travel will take us to want to travel. Like I have done a bunch of work in Cambodia in Angkor Wat, and as we digitize all this, we realized that we were experimenting with the 3D models that we've built and everything else, that people who really learn a lot about Angkor Wat, they will want to go. like they will want to go visit it. But there'll be many people who are cursatory that just enjoy Angkor Wat as a passing thing and learn a lot about it, but it will draw more people to wanting to go somewhere. But I do think that they'll be more specific about where they want to go, and less like, I want to go to Europe, and more about, I want to go to this specific place, because I've learned a lot about it. Next question.
Tlaluk Miguel Lopez Waterman from Astoria, New York is in again. Can we have Andy, Jonas, Aaron, and others with experience do a lab on version control for developing and the appropriate way to develop with GitHub? I learned my weakness in this department recently.
Jonas?
We just need to find a time where everyone is around, and then we can do a GitHub 101, how to structure your project and how to contribute to our GitHub organization, where we have like a bunch of open source stuff.
I think like a late morning on a late Monday morning might be good. Maybe a week from Monday. What do you think, Jonas? For us.
What?
Wait, late morning for you, early
It's
evening.
late.
What?
Late morning is just late for me, but yeah, that should probably work.
Okay, someone text that to me, or I'll forget. But let's look at doing that. Could be a lab on Monday the 29th, I think, if there's interest. So I think that'd be great. Next question.
Mike Beardmore from Reading, UK comes in. Is there a production role for license-free LoRaWAN communications in areas where BLE is distance limited?
Go ahead, John.
This is an interesting question, Mike. We were just talking about this yesterday or the day before on After Hours. There's some interesting wireless technologies coming onto the marketplace right now.
Can you explain what LoRaWAN and
LoRaWAN is long range, and so these are specifically designed for IoT devices, right? So the LoRaWAN up to almost 5 kilometers, but the one that looks more promising is Halo, which is a 802.11 spec. And this is just coming to the marketplace now. And I wouldn't use it for video, but for device control up to 1 kilometer away, might be some interesting applications in that regard. So there's a ton of technologies coming to the marketplace, specifically designed for IoT. So maybe for machine control, but I wouldn't use it for streaming.
For streaming, you can get a pretty long distance if it's focused, right, with Wi-Fi. The current Wi-Fi standards.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, my rocket we did Wi-Fi was a 10-mile shot.
Yeah, the most I've done is 6 miles, but it's definitely a doable thing. Go ahead, Rupert.
Yeah, like John said, I mean, those technologies there, as asked, it's typically about instrumentation, IoT, metadata, and stuff like that. And quite often it involves a mesh topology too, so it can get pretty jumpy for anything AV related. But for telemetry and control, there's some uses there maybe.
Yeah, we used one where we had it was six miles, and it got perfect video. Especially given the challenging environment that it was in, that we weren't supposed to be there. So it was, it worked pretty well under fire. Next question.
Douglas Carmichael asks, could you see VDO.ninja improving its capabilities to manage degraded CPU or network conditions? Those were the cause of the audio video sync issues on Conversations with Tony Mobley with Vienna Tran.
Go ahead, Jonas.
Yes, there's a limit to it though. As you want low latency conversations, degraded networks will always be an issue. I don't know how they set VDO.ninja up, but there's a lot of tweaks you can do. Spend quite a lot of time for building my own version, because you can build it on your own web server and then tweak it, and you can tweak it with a lot of those UL parameters. Codecs and all that, VP9 is really efficient for it. You can make it work pretty much, but it takes time and testing.
Next question.
Rupert McCrae from Dallas, Texas comes in. Will virtual backgrounds gradually or quickly become an obvious sign of employers not investing in their employees' home setup? Might employees ultimately find that embarrassing?
Go ahead, Jeffrey.
Yeah, I don't think that employers nor employees care about virtual backgrounds. If they have a virtual background, they'll have it. If they don't, some people will complain because their backgrounds are messy and they might have a little bit of a fear on there. But for the most part, if they're not doing what we're doing, and that is broadcasting to a whole bunch of people, and it's just a straight up meeting, then virtual backgrounds will just continue to be virtual backgrounds. The only thing that I wish is the blurred background had the ability to do gradients, so you can make a 10% blur as opposed to a 80% blur. That'd be nice to actually gradient that.
Go ahead, TJ.
While the technology that they are using to figure out what area that should be replaced by the background is pretty amazing, I still hate them and really hope they go away. One can only hope that they will go away.
Go, John.
I don't think they're going to go away, but I think as the technology changes, there's some cameras coming out that have the replacement built into the camera that's using LiDAR to determine where things are rather than edge defining. But I think virtual backgrounds are here to stay, because some people will be in situations where they can't control where they are. And if you light for them and you're careful with what you pick as your background, they don't have to be horrible.
Go ahead, Peter.
I was going to repeat what John said, which is the technology is changing so rapidly. We're going to have better virtual backgrounds, but I'm like TJ. I hate them with a passion. I get after people all the time because they disappear halfway into their virtual background, a bunch of the times, or you see very strange effects caused by them taking a drink of coffee or something like that. But as John pointed out, sometimes people can't help it. I mean, the reality is it's either that or they're sitting in front of an unmade bed in a bedroom with no background. And so, and I can tell you, our employers are not really focused on what people look like at home. They haven't made that leap yet.
Well, I don't think that, before Laura jumps in, I don't think that they want to make that leap. I think that part of it is a lot of employers want their employees to come back. And so investing in their home setup does not improve that situation. Because once you have a really good, what I will say is that once you have a really good home setup, you don't want to meet with anybody in person. You look better, you sound better, you're more comfortable at home. And so I think that, I've actually had specific conversations with people who are employers that say, if we started putting good cameras and mics, because I was bringing that up and they were like, yeah, we started bringing them up, we never get them back, and that's the other piece of that is the employees have to do it on their own. Go ahead, Laura.
All I'm going to say is there are reasons that they need to either drastically improve virtual backgrounds or get rid of them. And all I'm going to say is they're an accessibility nightmare.
Yeah. The main thing is I will say that it's an opportunity for every employee or every person who's a salesperson or everybody else to have a leg up. When you look better and sound better, we've talked about it over and over again, you have an advantage in every meeting. Every meeting. You are at, it is I can tell you as someone who goes into these meetings, you have a clear authority advantage every time you go in with a good mic and a good camera and good lighting. People listen to you differently because of that. And so people who use virtual backgrounds and, their built-in cameras do it at their own risk of upward mobility. Next question.
Gregory Wheeler comes in with, how can an ATEM Mini Pro multiview be sent to an external location across the country to a person?
Go ahead, Jonas.
First of all, you want to capture it somehow if you want to use any software like VDO.ninja, Zoom, MediaLux Transport is a common one. You can use another ATEM Mini, you can use a capture card, a deck link card. That's all valid options. What you also can do, especially if you can get accustomed to the latency, is use an SRT backhaul. That's what I do most of the times now. So you have an SRT encoder, plug it in, and then on the other end, the cheapest SRT decoder probably is an Apple TV, just with the HiVision SRT app, and works flawlessly. It's amazing to see the full clarity and then have like a quick backhaul with MediaLux or Zoom.
Go ahead, Jeffrey.
And one more is NDI just came out with NDI Bridge, which it has the ability to go across large areas on remote locations and things like that. So you can choose that. That's absolutely free.
We mostly use Zoom for that. I mean, to send those back because we find that the quality is high enough for someone who's making decisions to see it, and the latency is really good. The other one that we're about to start testing is using QuickTime on a Mac Mini, or actually a PC, but using not QuickTime, but any kind of video player, and then using Parsec to send it back, so someone can just open it up because the latency is lower. Next question.
Our next question is from Sayamant Sandhir from India. Should one create vertical or horizontal videos? What should the content team plan for while making video and audio recordings in the field? These are mostly client locations like factories, training centers, etc., for a client's mobile app.
I go to Roscoe.
Yeah, I always would default to horizontal. It's just you have two eyes and they're located side by side. You want more information to scan across a device, especially for training. The other thing is to go ahead and get the part about what should you plan for in the field, get the detailed shots. If these are going to be viewed on any kind of a small device, you really need to zoom in and get close-ups to explain things.
Go ahead, Mitchell.
Yeah, I agree with Roscoe. Horizontal's in, and 4K definitely, particularly if you're posting 1080, because then you can in post adjust the picture positioning and zoom in and actually turn a 2-cut into a one shot pretty easily. So 4K horizontal.
Go ahead, Jeffrey.
So for me, the factor of what cameras that you're going to be using. If you're going to be using 4K cameras to create a portrait style TikTok or a Facebook thing or anything like that, and then of course, who's going to be doing the shooting? Because there are some really talented portrait style videographers out there that are doing some really wonderful jobs doing it that way. So those are the main two factors that I would consider in how you do it.
I shoot everything horizontal, and then I decide whether it goes vertical. And to the point that was made earlier, it's 4K or 6K or higher. But I shoot everything horizontal, and then I frame for it, knowing that I may go to vertical or horizontal. I generally, for training, I totally agree that horizontal is the way to go. For where vertical works really well is single person addressed to other people, because it fills up the background. You don't have to figure out what's back there because you really only see the person. So vertical does have its place. It's just that it's, but for training, I would do it horizontal. Next question.
Our next question is from Bill in Bangor, Maine. What is the output of the ATEM Mini? Can it be changed?
Go ahead, Peter.
Yeah, if you bring up ATEM software control, at least on the Mac, up in the bar on the top, you can actually see the word output, and there you can set it to any one of the inputs, or you can say set it to output, to multiview or program view or whatever. But you can actually bridge an input to an output at that point if you want, to the output if you want. And on the mini extremes and the mini extreme ISOs, both outputs are configurable under those circumstances.
Go to Roscoe.
Yeah, and just in case you want to know, you can change the frame rates also of what comes out of a ATEM Mini.
Okay.
Next question.
Marcus Ritalati from Sweden asks, what VST3 audio plugins do you use in Vmix when live streaming, and why?
It's a discussion we don't have very often, and the person that would probably be answering that just left. We lost Jonas. So I don't know of any that we use. Go ahead, Mitchell.
Yeah, I don't use Vmix, but as far as VST3 plugins for broadcast, the Wave L1 or L2, they have a vocal writer, which is excellent. And then of course there's some RX9 plugins in their Nectar line also, with our friends over at Isotope.
Next question.
Roberto Barro from Plymouth Meeting, Pennsylvania is in next. I recorded a funeral to our church YouTube account, but the family also wants a DVD of the service. What steps do I take to get the recording out of YouTube to resolve to burn that disc?
Go ahead, Laura.
I would start with VLC, go into YouTube, copy the YouTube link, take it into VLC, open media stream. Under media information, copy that destination address back into your browser and download that file. Now, how to get it to Resolve from there, I'm stuck because I don't use Resolve.
Go ahead, Jeffrey.
Yeah, you can, if you hit the regular download button, you're only going to get a 720p version. It also depends on how long that service was. If you get multiple hours, there might be a point where you cannot download it because YouTube's just not going to process it. Now, with that said, there's also a program called 4K Video Downloader, and there's a couple other ones like the VLC one that you can use. You just basically take the link and you put it into the software, and it'll download it, and it can download in higher than 720p all the way up to 4K. But of course, the quality is not going to be as great as if you just pulled it from a camera because it's already compressed.
Yeah, and the I believe that Roxio is still out there. Roxio is a DVD authoring tool that you can use to burn it to a DVD. You'll need a DVD authoring tool specifically to burn it into a format that someone can actually open on a DVD player. Next question.
Bill from Bangor, Maine is in again. My ATEM television studio requires using converters to match inputs. Could I connect an ATEM Mini to serve this purpose?
Go ahead, Roscoe.
You certainly could. You're going to increase your latency a little bit, and you're going to be doing a 4-to-1. So, or depending on which ATEM you buy, you could do an 8-to-1. But you're basically what you're going to do is route out the HDMI's into one input of your older TV studio. And does it work? Yeah. You're not going to get any kind of camera control if you're doing anything like that. But anyways,
Go ahead, Mitchell.
Yeah, it's a good approach to converting because it's cheaper. If you use an ATEM Mini, it's cheaper than buying the converters to do the same thing.
It just starts stacking up a lot of complexity, I think is the issue. Go ahead, Roscoe.
yeah. The other thing you'd probably want to use is something like a Stream Deck, so that you could, if you wanted to do this in any kind of live configuration, so that you literally could push one button and control exactly what's going to come out of both switchers.
Yep. Next question.
Roberto Barro from Plymouth Meeting, Pennsylvania is back again. In our apartment, we have Xfinity Internet, our only choice. We were wondering if we could switch out their router with our own. If so, which one do you recommend, and what are the steps to install it?
Go ahead, John.
Well, you want to look at the DOCSIS. I think it's 3.01, but you have to talk to Comcast, and they say what their approved routers are. Whether you rent it or whether you buy it, I think the payoff is if you rent it for a little over a year, you've bought it. If you own your own router, you have the ability to control more settings than the router if you use the Comcast router. On the other hand, if you're having problems with Comcast and it's your router, they say it's your router. Log into it, figure it out. If it's their router, they have a back-end control. I at my home have my own because I usually have a pretty good IT support when he's not busy with his day job.
Yeah. Go ahead, Rupert.
Yeah, I like to go for the Aris or the Netgear cable modems, and I like to keep the modem separate to the router. So I get a modem, put it in bridge mode, and then I come into my own router. It kind of gives you just the best control over all of those aspects. But John is absolutely right. If you have your own equipment, you get access to the settings, but also access to the troubleshooting, tools that are built in there. And if you have access to a group like this, then we can help you through problems much quicker than you'll be able to get, help through cable. But the key to this operation is to make sure that you're not in a rental agreement with your current unit, and that whatever unit you choose is compatible. And like John says, they have a compatibility list published online. But when you buy your new unit, you need to call them to get it linked to your account. And you usually do that with there's a WAN side MAC address on that unit, and you'll call them and they'll link that up and authorize it, and then it'll sync up. It's not just plug and play.
I think I mostly use it because I'm passive aggressive about Comcast. So I just don't like being part of their business model by providing part of their Wi-Fi network to everyone else, and I don't like the idea of someone else logging into my server, even though they say it's safe. I don't trust it. So I replaced mine. I use an Aris Surfboard, SB8200, which is a DOCSIS 3.1, and I find it works great. I do restart it every once in a while. Sometimes things just gets out of sync with Comcast, and unplugging it for 10 seconds and plugging it back in comes right back up and everything's fine. So that's the only little glitch that I have found. That I had the same problem with it, actually with the Comcast routers as well. Next question.
So one more thing on that, plugging it, unplugging it. If you buy your own and you put in the battery so your voice over telephone works, when you unplug it, it doesn't reset it.
Right.
What's happening here?
Yeah, exactly. That's funny.
I just thought that might help somebody because a friend had it happen to him.
Next question.
Mike Beardmore from Reading, UK is back. Tracking down the reason a SanDisk 16 gigabyte SD card showed only a 30 megabyte partition after my Pi fell off a shelf, I found a StackExchange hint to look for a hairline cracks, which proved correct.
Go ahead, Jeffrey.
Oh, which proved correct. Okay, I was going to kind of allude to the fact that it could be more on the Pi end of things than the card things. But if there's a hairline crack in your card and you physically see it, then yeah, just replace the card. There's not much you can do after that.
Next question.
Chris from Toronto asks, is there a compilation of gear recommendations from Office Hours anywhere? I'm sure it has been asked before, but I'd love to know recommendations for a camera-friendly, low-profile headset.
Go ahead, Roscoe.
Yeah, I just put the link in Mukana, but if you're on Discord, I actually have a list of low-cost options for teachers specifically to the Mac, and it started with the headset I'm working right now. It's the Pulson ESM2, currently $13 is what they cost at TechRise, which I should be able to. Anyways, there are some very inexpensive things, but I would say there's also very good recommendations from this group on DPA low-profile headsets. I think that would probably be the brand that most might go with on a more expensive and higher quality.
Yep. Next question.
Douglas Carmichael is in. Alex, you mentioned Whole Foods as a partner for Cooking with Damyanti. Hasmukh has always been about putting Africa first, not Africa as a secondary partner to the bigger players. Could you see an African-based retailer like Shoprite as a partner?
I could. It would be hard. It would be much harder. They just don't have the infrastructure to do it. I use Whole Foods, although I have to admit, I've used Whole Foods for, 20 years, and I'm slowly moving away from them. So I'm trying to find other places to buy things because of some of their business practices. And so mostly they take out the best brands for specific things and only put the 365 in. They're kind of being Amazoned. And so I don't appreciate that. So I will back away from my Whole Foods recommendation because probably within the next couple months, I won't use Whole Foods at all. But anyway, I do think that it could be a lot of different brands that could do this. The hard part is really in Africa's delivery systems, that aren't quite as developed as here. I think that an Africa First policy has to do more with getting the influence of Africa to everywhere, as opposed to trying to make it work in every part of Africa, which is difficult. Next question.
Chris Earl from Maitland, Florida asks, is the direct out of input 1 and 2 on an ATEM Extreme truly passing through the original signal? Would it retain a 4K 120 signal even though the ATEM processing can only do 1080/60, I think?
No, it'll only see 1080. You can't put more than 1080 into one of the minis. They don't have any scaling for that. That would be more scaling chips that they don't have. Now, next question.
Marcus Ritalati is back in from Sweden. How come it's mostly the audio that fails when it comes to AV streaming production? What is the complexity that makes it fail when video signals always seem to work fine?
Go ahead, Mitchell.
Well, Marcus, actually, it's easier to pass a streaming audio signal with less bandwidth. It just has to do with your ears. You can hear dropped frames a lot quicker than you can see them, because if you're looking at me right now and I were to pause for a second, that could easily be a dropped frame, and it's just repeating the previous frame in order to make up the difference. So you don't see that as easily as you hear that.
There's also oftentimes way more audio signals and way more audio processing than video. We're switching between some video signals, and there's tons of different foldbacks and mix minuses and all kinds of other things going on in audio. It's just a much more complex environment. Last question for the first hour.
Bill from Bangor, Maine is in again. What is the best latex paint color for a background wall?
My strong preference, as you can see here, is gray. I take an 18% gray card to a hardware store and hand it to them and tell them to match it. I think you can try to find specialized paints, but I haven't found that to be necessary. I find that I can now that the key is to get a really good one is I prime it, and then I prime it with I prime it twice, and then I put 2 or 3 layers of the gray down. And that tends to be more effective. Go ahead, Jeffrey.
Only thing I'll add to that, I agree to everything. The only thing I'll add to that is make sure you're not getting any type of gloss paint. Get something matte, so you don't get any type of light glare or anything like that.
Yeah, TJ.
If gray doesn't work with your sense of decor or whatever you have going in the room, which I agree, gray is great.
And by the way, the reason I do gray is because I can color it anything. It absorbs whatever's there. Yeah, go ahead, TJ. Stick away from bold, vibrant colors. You don't want big red wall or big orange wall or something, or green wall behind you. That will really detract. Go ahead, John.
So there was a formula that's in Mukana, and you can get the paint mixed for you at Home Depot. Chris Fritchie Studio uses gray. I use his formula, and the picture of his can that he got from Home Depot, took it to our Home Depot, put 2 coats on the Studio B, which is in progress. And like you, Alex, Thanksgiving, hopefully we'll be thankful that our studios are done after it. So this is not that gray, but stay tuned. You'll see what the that gray looks like. But 2 coats, no gloss, and it looks beautiful. The only problem is that I was dealing with audio issues in the room by putting up sound barriers and stuff, and now I don't want to cover up my gray walls, so I'm trying to figure out how to deal with the audio issues.
Yeah, I hopefully I'll be able to show everybody what I'm doing with my office, because I think it'll be interesting. Hopefully all the gear shows up. That's the only thing I'm a little behind on getting all the. By the way, someone here suggested MakerPipe. I don't know who it was, but I'm now totally in. Yeah, it was you, John. I'm blaming you.
They just announced their Black Friday. You could get their new 1-inch pipes and all their other pipes 15% off.
That's great. I will say that their customer service is amazing. Now, I already committed to kind of the 3/4 inch pipe, which I hope will be strong enough for what I think. I think it will be for what I'm doing. But I'm buying they're so responsive that I've now just started buying. I think I spent $600 the other day on just fittings. But from someone who came from Speed Rail, $600 is like 4 things, and I have enough to build. So what I'm doing is I'm building up a shelf down one side, and then I'm building a total grid over top of me. And then I'm building the way I'm building the grid is so that I can drop the gray screen in. But if I pull the gray screen out, then I have have a better scene. So I can do both.
So the road you'll go down is right now you connect it and it's like an erector set. But they make conduit benders, and then you could do curves and stuff, and then connect them. And I had to go to an electrician to help me do it, and I go, now I want one. And the problem is I know I can't do it. I know what the tool looks like, but I realize this guy knows something that I don't.
Yeah, well, so either I'll be really excited. One thing that I did, by the way, and I can put this up if people remind me on, if someone sends me a direct thing, they do have CAD versions of all their connectors simplified. So it's not, you couldn't reprint it or whatever, or remake it, but it's simplified for when you're planning. So I pinged them and I said, hey, do you have like a CAD? And they sent me a step model of everything. So all their connectors, they have step models of. Now I got to convert those so that I can use them. But that helps me a lot thinking about where, actually modeling.
Well, also for $5, they'll give you, 3D, self-printed things. You could print them yourself, or you could buy them for them. And you use the stirs from Starbucks, and you can make little kits.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, that's cool.
Nice little stocking stuffer for somebody.
Yeah, exactly,
Get them booked early.
Yeah. All right, we're gonna close up the first hour. Oh, go ahead, Mark, real quick.
Just real quick, if you're gonna do a ceiling grid between bar joists, would you use 1-inch structural pipe, or the 1-inch maker pipe, or 3/4 inch to hang lights?
I'm using 3/4, but what I'm doing is I'm putting them over top of each other. So that's the key, is that what I'm not doing is putting them into the joints. I would absolutely use 1-inch if I was putting them into the joints, but for structural integrity, I'm running the pipe all the way across the top. And then I have these little rings are the rings that you put over it to attach them to each other, so that they're not, because what you don't want to do is you don't want each one of those little ones to have it. But I think that the 3/4 will have, for the kind of lights I'm putting up, will have plenty of structural integrity, especially when they're crisscrossed over top of each other. It disperses the weight. If it was one going across, I'd be a little bit more worried, but I'm less worried with the grid. And I'll show pictures of it as I work on it, and we'll all talk about it. And I will probably. So my plan is to try to build it all next week. If I get all the parts, then we will build it again over Christmas, because I will make it. I'll screw it up. But it's so much I hope it all works. I mean, I haven't built anything with a maker pipe, but I saw so many examples, and they're so responsive that I was like, oh, I'm just gonna commit to it. So I spent a lot of money on it, so hopefully it'll work. But anyway, it'll be an adventure. Over this weekend, I'm taking everything out of my office except for this camera. So everything by the end of Monday gets cleared out, and then right after Mac break, everything else goes. so it's all, like the whole room will be empty. So anyway, so we'll go from there. All right. Now we're going to close it up, and we'll start back up with the education hour at 8:10. We'll start having folks come in from our educators. If you are an educator and you'd like to join the conversation, go ahead and raise your Zoom hand, and we will bring you into the conversation. Now, TJ, can you handle mic checks?